Yo, what up, my dude? Shout out to that notification squad. You boys been popping off, okay? MX vs. ATV Legends Supercross Tracks. I really want to come in here and make a video on this. We got to talk about this because this is one of the biggest elements of the Legends trailer that I saw that really worried me the most about it. Not just in the fact of that the Supercross tracks almost look identical to the MX vs. ATV all-out Supercross tracks, even had the little all-out trailer playing on the screens of the Supercross tracks in the Legends trailer, but they almost look identical. I mean, if that's the one thing I could point out about the Legends trailer, that's the least changed thing that I've personally seen is the way that the Supercross tracks look. And whenever I go back and look at the Supercross tracks of MX vs. ATV All Out, I start to realize how they are severely lacking in not only character, but also just, it's like a bunch of the Supercross tracks feels like they weren't even designed for the physics and the speed of the bike. Even though they did capture, having enough different rhythm opportunities, and I feel like the Supercross tracks on All Out have enough skill gap to them, and, that sort of thing, jump fun factor and stuff like that. They have a lot of good qualities, but they're also pretty bad in a bunch of other different qualities. So I feel like the big thing now that we have these official Monster Energy Supercross games that are coming out every single year, I feel like with this next MX vs. ATV game, they really need to do something that is going to separate themselves from the milestone official Supercross games, right? I don't want to see this next MX vs. ATV Legends game come out and all of the Supercross tracks in it are just these like replica trying to be like real life Supercross tracks, trying to go down this one-to-one scaling road and trying to make it like hyper realistic. That is the last thing that I want to see in MX vs. ATV Legends because, MX vs. ATV has the license to the Lucas Oil Pro Motocross tracks, and I believe we're going to get more of those in Legends, so they kind of have that on lock, right? Because there is no official Lucas Oil Pro Motocross game from Milestone, so it's cool that MX vs. ATV kind of has that realistic replica motocross track vibe going, and then they also have their other motocross tracks that, like the stock tracks that were different than the replica tracks. But I feel like they never really got that for their Supercross tracks on All Out, right? So, for instance, on Reflex, if you look at the different Supercross tracks, I mean, they just innovated, dog. They weren't scared to, let's throw some metal ramps on a Supercross track, Let's have it where you jump up in the stadium, way high up in the stadium. Let's have some tighter, more realistic scaling Supercross tracks. Let's have some that are crazy outdoor, big jump Supercross tracks. Let's have some that are more complicated rhythms. Let's have some that are more simple. It just seemed like Reflex really captured this perfect combination and variation of every kind of Supercross design that you could basically think of without going like super fantasy. You know what I'm saying? So, but it seems like nowadays, especially with the Supercross tracks on All Out, it's like they all just kind of feel the same. I mean, yeah, there's some of them that are more difficult, some of them that have different kind of jump designs and stuff, but they all kind of feel like they're in a similar vibed stadium. They all kind of feel like they're on similar vibed dirt. They all kind of feel like they're, all kind of similar, like within the same sort of, built in the same sized area, right? Exact same sized area, smaller, more like a real life dome Supercross track, right? And it starts to give you this repetitive feeling. None of the particular Supercross tracks on All Out really stand out to me. Like a Fort Dodge Round 2 or a Manchester or a Stone Point. I mean, good Lord, like those Reflex Supercross tracks still to this day stand out to me. And I'm not saying that all the tracks in MX vs. ATV Legends just needs to be some super fantasy, massive scaling or anything like that. That's not what I'm talking about. I just want to see that variety come back. And I really want them to put enough of a graphical change to where it doesn't just feel like you're riding in the same exact stadiums as All Out, but just with a bunch of different track layouts. You know what I'm saying? They really need to do something about that from what I saw in the trailer, or it's going to be a very, very repetitive experience if you've already rode on all the Supercross tracks of All Out. Definitely let me know down in the comments if you guys kind of notice that, or like what you think they need to do in this next game. I mean, personally, I think it's hard to beat Reflex's sort of like formula that they had with the way they designed their stock tracks. I just think it's like, dude, that's the way to go. It's one thing if you get the license to start making replica, tracks in a game, because then you got to actually make it somewhat accurate to the real life track, but then that's also based on the scaling and the physics of the game, which you got a lot of room for, changing it there. But my point being, though, is like they're trying to kind of play off these Supercross tracks and All Out and what it looks like in Legends. They're still kind of trying to play them off kind of as quote-unquote replicas without actually having the license to have official Monster Energy Supercross replica tracks. And it just seems weird that they're doing that. Like I say, it's okay to have a few that are more replica, smaller scaling style tracks. The DLC tracks on Reflex kind of go more down that sort of vibe. They're tighter, more of that standard, but they still found a way to make them unique. Like, dog, I don't know. It's just all in, like, you want to have some tracks where it feels like you're going in and out of a warehouse, or it's like just Supercross tracks that are totally outdoors and cool different biomes. I feel like there's so much untapped potential in this, Supercross tracks in a MX versus ATV game. I feel like there's so much of that they're just not, when you keep it in that trying to be super realistic box and trying to keep it in these super realistic stadiums, I feel like you're not getting the full potential out of it when you do that. So personally, I think they need to have like half of the Supercross tracks that are super unique, more like Reflex style, where some of them jumping up in the stands, or it's got, like a metal jump here and there, or some weird, or like there's water on the track somewhere, some crazy shit, something, give me something that makes me go, whoa, that's something I ain't never really seen before. And then have the rest of the tracks going down more of that realistic, in the dome stadium, in a perfect square box layout type vibe. You see what I'm saying? Have like half of the tracks like that, and then the other half of the tracks be more on the bigger scaling, fun factor, outdoorsy, or cool, different, weird layouts and stuff like that. I think that's a very crucial thing for them to do in this next MX vs. ATV game. And it's crazy because it all has to play into the physics. When you're riding on some of these all-out Supercross tracks, sometimes you'll hit a main Supercross triple and literally jump like 100 foot past the landing, and it's like, how the fuck even is that possible? Like that, you know what I mean? It's like some of the way the jumps, and like from the distance to the corner to the jumps, and how much you can seat bounce the bike and All Out. A lot of times it just makes the game feel really goofy whenever you hit some of the jumps and some of the different obstacles on some of the tracks. It just doesn't, like I say, with Reflex, even though it has the fun factor and some of the bigger jumps and weird jumps and stuff like that, the way the physics are in the game and the way the track scaling, perfectly intertwines with the physics system and the speed of the game, it still keeps you somewhat in that, as realistic as an arcade motocross game could be. You understand what I'm saying? That's what I say about Reflex, whereas All Out kind of gets more into that super arcade feeling sometimes, where you can literally jump like a little 20-foot jump and whip the bike completely backwards or further over a little bitty 20-foot jump and bring it all the way back around. That don't even make any sense, right? Or being able to do 7 backflips in a row on a big jump. It's like, come on now. I just think there's still quite a bit of physics tweaking that needs to be done to the bike to get it more to that, like I'm talking about, more of that realistic for an arcade game type feeling that it needs to have to then match up to the track designs without making the tracks feel like some weird circus, super jump type crap. You got to be careful and not have it where your physics and your track designs create more of a feeling of like you're on some freestyle course than a supercross track. You understand what I'm saying? Even though I'm saying to put metal ramps in there, like, you got to understand what I'm saying here. And you have to have played quite a bit of Reflex to understand what I'm saying here. But I feel like All Out definitely has more of the feeling of the older MX vs. ATV games like Unleashed. It's got more of that kind of feeling, which can give it more of that outdated type vibe feeling when you compare it to games like Reflex, even though it came out a decade after Reflex. You see what I'm saying? I feel like we're still, even though we're coming out with these new MX vs. ATV games, the feeling of them still seem to feel more like outdated to me when you compare it to Reflex. Like, I think we need to completely get rid of the actual seat bounce button. It's cool to still have a seat bouncing ability in the game, but just don't make it a literal flicking your thumbstick up and down. You know what I mean? Like, that just feels so outdated to me that it's even an option in these newer MX vs. ATV games. I don't like it because it kind of gives you a false sense of if you don't quite get the speed out of a corner, it feels like you can still jump something, whereas Reflex felt like you really had to get the momentum out of the corner to hit a lot of the bigger jumps. So yeah, either way, that's my opinion on the Supercross tracks. I think they need to get way more varied, and I was just not really impressed at all with the trailer when it comes to the Supercross tracks specifically. I don't think there's been hardly anything changed on that, so hopefully they're still way in early development on that particular part of the game. I'm hoping and praying, but if it comes out and it looks as similar as it's looking in the trailer to the Supercross tracks of All Out, it's not going to be very good, MX vs. ATV. It's not going to be a very good reaction. That's all I got to say to that. And you could even almost say that, like with MX vs. ATV Supercross, kind of how those Supercross tracks were, I don't know. They just didn't... I don't know. They just didn't capture whatever the Supercross tracks had in the games before that. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like with the trailer to Legends, it almost seems like it's like you mixed MX vs. ATV Supercross tracks with MX vs. ATV All Out Supercross tracks. That's kind of what it looks like to me, and it just doesn't feel like we're progressing into anything. It's like we're just kind of getting a combination of shit that we've already had. It's not like we're progressing into new, full-blown new kind of Supercross track designs and feel like that real next MX vs. ATV game. So I really hope they can actually achieve that in the end, and not being scared to like go in there and put some, super big whoops on a certain track, or like, they got to be able to open it up a little bit. Some of these tracks on All Out just feel so tight that you feel like the bike's barely even moving. And but some of them aren't quite as bad, but some of them do kind of get where it's just like you feel like you're in slow motion, but you're still hitting the rhythms. It's really bizarre, and I don't know if that's the physics playing into it to kind of cause that or not, but Reflex just had such a flow to the game, to the gameplay of the game, in combination with the way the stock tracks were designed, that it's just, I've not played another arcade game to this day that has gave me that same kind of flow feeling that Reflex gave me. So, yeah, man. Either way, appreciate you guys watching all the videos. Don't forget, you can go follow me up, add me up on all my social media crap. Just Spencer Turley, no spaces and no capital letters. That's my Insta, Snap, Twitter, all that crap. But yeah, boys, we'll see you on that next one. Later, dudes.